Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. I am joined this week by Sean Greenan, who is farming in, I guess, the northern part of the country, kind of in a way, Sean. Isn't that right? Whereabouts are you farming for listeners out there?
Yeah, hello, Hannah. Yeah, I farm in a little town land called Creamoyle. It's just beside Swan's Cross in County Monaghan. We're probably about 12 miles from the border, so we're probably as far north in the Republic as you can go in there, you know.
And what are you farming?
Well, I originally milked cows, and then I went to keep fatting cattle, and then I changed to sucklers, and then I went to what I always wanted to do. I bred up a herd of pedigree stabiliser cattle. And
Very
that's what
nice.
I've done now this last 10 or 12 years. And about 3 years ago, I changed to organic farming as well. So that's what I'm at the minute.
We'll unpack this a little bit. First of all, tell us, we'll talk about stabilisers and then we'll talk about organic. So first of all, why stabilisers? What are stabilisers for people who've never heard of them?
Well, stabilisers are supposed to say that the way that they're described is they're the world's most profitable suckler cow, right? But you'll never see them in a show ring. They were bred up originally by a guy in America who started it out in 1976. And he incorporated 4 different breeds: Red Angus, Simmental, Hereford, and Gelbich or Liebich from German Austria, red and white milk beef cow. And they went around the world and they picked out the best breeds that they could find for sucklers, and they bred them together, and they come up with a nucleus herd of stabilisers, and they call them stabilisers because they reckoned it would stabilise the suckler industry. Now, one guy quote was that he often had the best weanling in the sale and got the top price, but he was never making money. But he now has stabilisers. He seldom, if ever, gets the top price for his weanlings, but he's profitable and making a profit. So that's what they're about. They're a small calf born. The cow has a great big pelvic area, so easy calving. Very healthy, alert calves, hardy calves, can be out wintered if they want. Ideal animals for a grass-fed system. That's really what they are, you know. They've done several tests on them over in Yorkshire and in basically the head office, and they've got one of the top feed to beef conversion ratios. So that's what they're about. Easy calving. They're nice cattle. They're lovely cattle to look at. Very, very quiet temperament. I just sell cattle, and the first thing I'll do with someone that comes to the farm is we'll take a walk through the sucklers and the calves and the bull and the whole lot. We'll just walk out through the field. They nearly not even get out of a road. They might just look at you as you're walking past them, you know. So quiet.
Yeah, that's lovely. And how much land do you have, and how many animals do you have? And would you be? I'm guessing if you talk about grass-based system, that you're probably spring calving as well, are you?
Yeah, I'm all spring calving. I tried autumn calving once, but I didn't agree with getting them back into calf. I had the bull on the slats. Ground around here, very heavy ground. It's challenging. This year, you could look at it 2 ways. You could say it was either challenging or educational. It is, you know, just whichever way you want to look at it, you know. So, very heavy wet ground around here. More farming it, as the man says, you play the cards that you're dealt.
Yeah.
Not going to move out of this part of the country, you know. So I have about 33 hectares.
Okay.
I keep about 35 to 40 animals between cows and calves and replacements. I what they call keep them in a mob, one group if I can. And keep rotating them around the paddocks.
Would you have, so would your rotations, so the length of time between grazing, just if anyone's unsure what that is, would you have quite a long rotation? So say, you know, on average, you know, template is maybe to have a 28-day rotation or even less. Would you have a longer rotation than that?
I had last year, I grazed 37 head on 30 acres, and I had them near enough to the day every month.
Okay.
31 days round the loop to the back again.
And do you like covers to be kind of knee high when you're going into them, or how high do you like covers to be when you're going into them?
Funny, for years I grazed cattle on paddock system, and I find that cattle does an outrageous good thrive when there's a short, fresh picking of grass, and then they'll also do a good thrive when there's a good amount of grass. So I'm happy with either. Funny, in the springtime before the clover comes, you'll probably have it grazed off fairly tight, which helps too with topping. Now this year again, we'll go back to the educational word, but generally speaking, you can graze it off in the springtime. The cattle's looking for grass, so it's grazed fairly tight. That helps, and then later on, as the clover builds into it, you can get an abundance of grass. And after, because by July, I don't worry about having too much grass. Cattle will eat it. If you get a top before July, the quality of grass after July will be good. And even if it gets a bit strong, I think you don't lose much in the quality. You've also got the abundance, and it works well because later on in the year, when the cows are turning into weanlings and they're eating more grass every time they come around, and the grass is getting more and more plentiful. So by July, August, September, I have lots of grass for them. I think way back when I went into organics first a few years ago, I stitched in white clover and herbs into all the grazing paddocks.
Yeah.
And that then, once that comes out, it's late the year. Clover really only got going really in July this year, between the wet and the dry, and I don't know, just it was very late the year now,
No, I've found some of our fields. I think we took our first cut of silage at the end of May, and oh my God, one of the fields, it just looked like the Sahara Desert afterwards, and I intentionally cut it a week earlier than normal because I was actually scared of drought, and I thought at least it would have an extra bit of time to recuperate. But it's been funny, like you said, between the dry and the wet, it's been a funny year. I'm wondering as well, Monaghan, in terms of wet and heavy ground, do you have a long winter then? Are they housed for quite a while?
Well, I've got away well now, and funny, the one thing I do find now is with the multi-species coming through in the grassland, that it has produced a lot of roots and grounds, and some of the fields that got wet, naturally got wet earlier, not now getting as wet as early. I actually went out with a spade and started digging and looking at the roots, and I was sort of amazed at the way the thing has turned a little, and I'd be expecting to turn it more. The multi-species seems to put down a lot of roots between the herbs and all this in the ground, and that seems to absorb the water in the ground, So I think it just doesn't get as wet as quick, and then in the dry weather it sort of howls some of the moisture as well. A bit like a sponge, I suppose. So I can see improvements. I'm only in my third year organic yet, but I can see improvements in some of the fields for wetness purposes,
And I know you do cereals as well, but I'm just wondering, do you test your silage quality as well? Has the silage quality improved, or has the thrive on the cattle improved since you stitched in those herbs and the clover?
Yeah. Well, I also ploughed my silage ground and put red clover in it. And that's what I've been feeding the cattle this last 2 winters, and it's excellent. It's excellent feed stuff. You can just see cattle, they just love it. Because I actually had to cut silage off cows there from what I changed my system a wee bit, and not push the bale in, but leave the bale in the bale in the middle of the passage and grape it into them, because they were just getting too fat,
Yes, so I have pedigree Herefords. We might have to call. I threatened them with Weight Watchers, but it does nothing.
Yeah, well, I didn't threaten them. I just put it to them.
Tough love, Sean. Yeah, tough love. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very handy. I work full time off the farm. My son Shane helps me out a lot on the farm, but he also works full time off the farm as well. So it's handy when you can go down and push in a bale of silage to the barrier and let the cows eat it till it's 3/4 done, and then just go down 2 evenings later and dip the rest of it into them. But you can't do that with the red clover now. You have to sort of go twice a day and grape in an amount to them and let them, But there's another thing I noticed about the multi-species there. They seem more content on it. Cows do.
Yeah.
It's just whatever's in the grass. Don't know. Now I'm not long enough at it. I don't take on to be an expert at anything, but just watching what's happening and making up your own mind and going and doing a few wee bits of pooching. just look at your soil, look at your cows, watch them. They seem happier. The soil seems better. The grass must be sweeter or something to them.
And then in terms of cereals, what cereals are you doing?
Well, last year, I had 21 acres of cereal in. I had wheat and beans and barley and beans in a mix, hoping that the beans would take in some of the nitrogen to help grow the crop. Now, I had mixed results. Like it's good enough. You're making your own. I put in 21 acres. I kept enough feed from that to feed my own stock, and I sold the rest of it. And what I sold paid for the putting in and taking out and harvesting of the whole lot. So it basically left me with free meal last winter, which was fine. But I knew I wasn't getting the results that I should be capable of getting.
Yeah.
As I say, it's I have my third crop in at the minute now, and that's oats, barley, and peas. It's now doing very well this year, and it didn't go in till the 21st of April, which was like over a month later than last year. And I'm very happy with it now. I think it's a big improvement on what was in last year. I think we'll know better, I suppose, when we harvest it and you weigh what comes. The weather's a wee bit challenging or educational with it too, because I see a bit of red shank coming in it, and that's not just what we require, but that's just it. Like, it's just the year that we're in, and it was sticky putting it in now, and as long as it's not sticky when we're taking it out again, we'll get by. But I did set about this year of educating myself a bit. I done a 6-day soil course with David Wallace through Nuts, and that was very, very interesting. And then I went and I got what I call a deep soil sample test done on me soils, and I put in a few corrections that they need. So I'm hoping if I do that for a few years, that maybe some of the things that are missing or that's not right. Cereal is new to me. Cattle, I'm at my lifetime growing grass, growing silage. That's not really an issue, but I'm only growing cereal for 3 years now, so it's a learning curve. And
it's quite a brave thing to do. But I mean, even the fact you didn't have to pay for meal last year is impressive, considering it was costs between 700 and €1,000 a ton for organic meal. I mean, that'll have a lot of farmers listening. The rest of your stuff, where does it go? What outlet does it go to? Is it animals or is it humans that it goes to?
No, all of my stock more or less goes for breeding.
Okay.
The only thing that I would send anywhere would be if I had some breeding bulls left over, maybe in July. They would go to the factory then,
And then,
probably.
But in terms of the cereals, then as well, is that animal feed or where does the cereals go?
All right, the cereal. We in Monaghan here, we've got together, and there's about 14 of us have set up an organic discussion group between ourselves.
Yeah.
And in that we set up a seed or a feed growers group, and there's about 6 or 7 of us in it, and we're actually growing feed. Some of the guys are growing oats for Flahavans. Last year we got together and we sold about 60 odd ton to one dairy farmer, and smaller amounts of tonnage till different guys between us. So the idea is that obviously if somebody's growing oats and somebody's growing barley and somebody's growing something, we can actually make a ration between that and sell it to somebody. That's kind of what we're looking to do and has done last year now. So it's only coming into a second year now, but we'll be actively looking for new customers not too far away if we can, that'll be looking for a ton or 2 ton or 5 ton of products. So
well, there you go. You got a shout out there. If I was a bit closer to you, I'd be getting it. I'd be delighted.
Yeah.
But it's very important. Like, and it's hard to get. Like, for people who don't know, I mean, there's very few and very few tillage farmers, but even fewer organic tillage farmers. And trying to get homegrown organic feed is difficult. And it's brilliant if you can, because it really lowers your carbon footprint. And
that's right.
It's fantastic if you can get your hands on it. Organic. Do you think organic has added to your profit margins? Are you happy with it that way?
Definitely. That's one thing. We were in a Chagas discussion group, still are, like, but we were in a Chagas discussion group as conventional farmers, And always the argument was that you can't do much about the price that you're getting. You're a price taker, not a price maker. But the one thing that you can do is sort out your inputs, you know. So I went organic. The first thing I done was I probably spent the money that I would have spent on fertilizer the first year. Instead of buying fertilizer with it, I bought clover and multi-species. I stitched that into the grazing. I ploughed my silage ground the first year after I took the first cut off it, reseeded it, put red clover in it. Couldn't get the clover variety that I wanted because of Brexit at the time, and it was impossible to get anything out of England at that stage. But I'm probably looking now at probably having to, well, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to move that red clover on to another area and probably put me cereal into that red clover area next year. But the red clover that I sowed probably was the wrong variety, and it's probably not going to last long enough. But it's done well for a few years there. And so I now have silage that cost me the price of the baling. No inputs other than I put out my own bit of slurry or manure on it, and you have your grazing more or less free without fertilizer. And after that, the government wants to give me 10 grand a year as well, and you're growing your own meal. So like it's a win-win. That's the way I look at it, you know.
And I guess we're coming to the end of the podcast, but you have a farm walk coming up as well. So what can people expect from the farm walk?
Well, all I say to people coming to the farm walk, they'll see what I do. It mightn't be everybody's correct way of doing things, but it's where I'm at. And I'll quote, I suppose, Mark Landers. He's one of the guys probably well known. He's in our discussion group too. And Mark talked about everybody who's painting their own canvas. Well, I started painting my canvas. It's just making me the full picture yet, you know, but we're still working on it. We're still mixing colours on one side, trying to come up with something, you know. But what we are doing here is we're just looking to see what we can do. You know, I think to try to get the right cereal, try to get the right conditions in the soil. And we've done a good wee bit of work on that. I've done a few bits of jobs on machinery for next year. I have me wee vermi worm composter here, or worm juicing here, producing vermi juice. So there's a few wee bits and pieces that I'm at as well. I'm quite happy to show people what I'm at. I'm not going to say that it's 10 out of 10 for being the right way of doing things. It's just I've done a bit of investigating, and I'm trying to come up with ways of doing things, and just looking at it. And if anyone's interested in coming and seeing what's going on, they're quite welcome, you know.
I think they would be. I think that sounds like a breath of fresh air, and I think everyone's on a learning journey. It'd be very boring if we weren't. But Sean, thank you very, very much for that. For everyone listening, you've been listening to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And for more about organics and to sign up to Sean's farm walk as well, go to their website, which is www.irishorganicassociation.ie. But for me, Hannah Quinn Mulligan, thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next week.